Hello, my name is Julie Ribchinsky. I am Professor Emeritus at Central Connecticut State University. I am the cello teacher at Wesleyan University, and I maintain a home studio of cellists in Iverton, Connecticut. I'm here today to discuss the requirements for the Connecticut Music Educators Association High School Regional Festival, and I hope by this tutorial to give you some tips for practicing, as well as to outline the requirements that you'll need. You can get further information about this audition by going on to their website at cmea.org. And you can always reach out to me if you have further questions, and I'd be more than happy to try to help you out. My email is ribchinskyj@ccsu.edu. So let's get started with the requirements. The audition is in 3 parts, a set of scales, major and minor, played in a set pattern at a minimum tempo of a quarter equals 52. And those scales are C major, C minor, and then E major, E minor. The next is a prepared piece, and this year it's on a rotating schedule. This year it is the Allegro Appassionato by Camille Saint-Saëns. And then finally, you'll be asked to do some sight reading. So I'll take each one of these things separately. Let's start with scales. Okay, so the minimum tempo, and it's going to seem pretty slow for a lot of you, because I know if you're like me, you really want to just kind of tear ahead with your scales. But I would encourage you to practice it at 52. You can play it faster as long as it's steady and accurate. So here we go. I'll show you C major in 3 octaves at a quarter equals 52. So obviously you won't use the metronome in the audition, but I would, practice a lot with your scales with a metronome, so you can be sure. So here is C minor, and my fingerings are my fingerings. You may have different ones, and that's completely fine. I like to tell students go up the same way, come back the same way you go up, so that your brain doesn't get a little bit befuddled with it. So here is C minor. And then the next set is E major and E minor. I also like to tell students to work on your sound when you're practicing scales. Go for the octave and make a beautiful sound as much as you can. And E minor. So that's it for the scale requirement. The next section is the prepared piece, and that's the Allegro Appassionato. One of my favorite pieces by Saint-Saëns. He also wrote, of course, a fantastic cello concerto and many, many other pieces. But this is a real passionate and really fun dramatic piece really to play. And I encourage you to bring out all those dramatic moments. I also encourage you to practice with a metronome, because you would be really shocked to see the places that you might be rushing ahead where you don't really need to. The tempo is not given. It says allegro. You could probably play that anywhere from about 100 to maybe 120 to the quarter note. And so I'd encourage you to really set the tempo. There are a couple places, however, where you're supposed to go slower. One is the più lento at measure 73, and then that poco meno mosso at 184. The più lento at 73, you want to kind of grade it so that you get back to a tempo in 8 measures later, right? So you want to be right straight at your a tempo at 8 measures later. So practice that a tempo at that point. The poco meno at 184 should all of those 8 measures should be played slowly. Don't rush ahead or make a stringendo like you did in the sort of section like it at 73. Keep that nice and sort of slow and dolce, or sweetly singing. And then the a tempo at 192, you can push ahead to your basic tempo, but there's no need to play that faster, because Saint-Saëns wrote in faster rhythms, right? He writes triplets and then 16th notes, so the music is going to sound like it's getting faster without you having to push the tempo. One thing about the opening motive, you want to make sure it's really dramatic, but at the same time rhythmically accurate. So you have to think about the fact that you're playing those 16th notes off a tie, and a lot of times the tendency is to hold the tied note too long and then rush the 16th notes. So here is a demonstration of that. Right? You don't want to do that. As dramatic as that might sound, that's not what he wrote. So you want to think about your straight 16th notes, right? Yada da 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 da, and play it that way. Okay, so nice and straight there. And then I think you want to be careful at where the really hard passage is at the top of the 3rd page, and those kind of diminished arpeggios leading up to that. I have students practice those in double stops, so you're so that you make sure that you get that in tune. And then the run coming down, if you just think about using your bow, and actually in the edition I'm using the Suzuki Book 8 edition, you should make a diminuendo on the 2nd measure of that, so that you have enough sort of reserve to make a crescendo at the end. So you're going to be, so you can get louder. Okay, so those are just a few tips as you practice, and I'll now play the piece for you. gave you some ideas, and I know you'll have lots of fun with this piece. I also know that it's hard and it takes a lot of work, so if you haven't started on it, I would make sure that you get going on it really pretty soon. The last section on the audition is sight reading, and many students think that you just really can't practice sight reading, you can't prepare for sight reading. But really, it's a little bit like taking the SATs and preparing for a test like that. You don't know exactly what's going to be on it, but there are certain ways you can study. And I would encourage you to just sight read. Find music that you've never played before, be it from an orchestra part or from pieces that you have in your library. Ask your orchestra teacher. You can even go on to the library, which is called IMSLP. It's the free library, and just Google a composer, or put in a composer such as maybe Beethoven's Fifth Symphony or Brahms' Second Symphony, and up will pop the music for you to look at, and you can practice sight reading that way. The idea behind sight reading, of course, is that you're not practicing, you're really just plowing through. So you want to make sure that your rhythm is very, very solid, and you understand rhythmic structures, so that you can look at music and really think it through in your head before you actually play it. And that's probably the most important thing, that you understand that the tempo, you know what the tempo should be, and that you're steady with the actual rhythmic structures themselves. If you're unsure of how fast or slow to play it, you certainly can ask that question if there's no indication of a metronome marking or tempo. And then, of course, the key signature is very important. So you need to know your, what accidentals to be using. And the more you practice your scales, the more you're going to be able to access those different keys. Playing in E major after this audition is going to be easier for you because you really understand where those D sharps lie on the cello. So do practice your sight reading. Do get started soon, and I know you're going to be very successful with the regional audition in the fall. If I can be of any help in the future, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much for listening.